as is with the case with most investments, the beta of the investment is not generally what causes the return for the investor. We are financializing investment, all sorts of products, whether it's real estate, commodities, film, crypto, so on and so forth. I personally believe that film has an intrinsic value, much the same way as energy does. And one can lose money in an energy contract, even though energy retains its intrinsic value. That would be, let's say, a forward contract. You're promising to buy energy, crude oil, at a price into the future when the actual price of the crude oil decreases in value. And in the waterfall of payments, you are left with no returns, whilst generally speaking, the leaseholder of the land, which is in first position, in second position, that would be the driller, the leaseholder still makes money. So during the pandemic, when crude oil prices went negative, the leaseholder of the land still got paid for the oil that was extracted from the land, even though the oil went negative. It was the driller that lost money. And in some cases, the driller didn't lose money because they had done a forward contract with a distributor or a refiner. And so even then, the driller didn't lose money either. So it's a cascading of effects. The risk in all products is not the intrinsic, it's not the nature of the industry. It's not the asset itself. It is the contract. It's how you access that asset. So as it relates to the movies, movies can be made with essentially zero equity investments. An example of that would be a film's pre-sales. So if you take James Bond is a film in which about 120% or 150% of the film's budget is covered through debt, which means that before they even shoot a single frame of James Bond, let's say the film's going to cost $100 million, the production company has achieved $120 to $150 million in promises to pay upon the delivery of the negatives. The negatives would be the film reel. So essentially, Stella Artois, Heineken, Aston Martin, BMW, as product placements, would pay to be placed in the film, but that payment would be affected once the film was actually filmed. This is to avoid the risk that the money is collected for the product placement and the film ultimately is not delivered, either filmed but not finished or never even filmed in the first place. So that is an example of a film that is 120 to 150% debt financed. Then if you take a film such as Blair Witch Project, or other sort of small independent films, those films can be 100% equity financed, which allows for when the film is incredibly successful, that the equity investors really receive all the profits of that film. And where the movie business is in fact risky is in fact in the contract. Because sophisticated investors, not sophisticated movie investors, but sophisticated investors know that it is possible to debt finance a film, equity investors want to see that the production has debt financing. And this is an example of something, be careful of what you wish for because you might just get it. So let's say you have a $10 million film. you can go to a distributor, an American distributor, domestic distributor, and that distributor will look at the script and the stars attached and say, okay, so you've got Brad Pitt attached to your film. It's a great catch. Let's say the film for round numbers is a $10 million budget. So you could scale it up to $50 or $100 million, but let's say it's a $10 million budget. The domestic distributor will say, because I like the script, I like the story, I promise to pay you $4 million, so 40% of the budget, if you deliver me this film. So it's a promise to pay. Whatever you can achieve domestic, you should be able to achieve foreign. So then you go to the Cannes Film Festival and the Cannes Film Market, or you go to the American Film Market, or you go to Toronto or Sundance or Berlin. But the two principal markets are the Cannes Film Market and the American Film Market. And you can go to distributors, foreign distributors, and given that there is an American distribution and stars and script, foreign buyers will promise to pay for that film. So if you can achieve 40% of your budget in domestic, you should also be able to achieve 40% equal amounts for the rest of the world, pre-selling the film to South America, Africa, Asia, various European nations, and so on and so forth. Now your film would be 80% debt financed. Then you film your film in a state that offers tax credits, let's say 20%, and you would essentially have 40% domestic, 40% foreign, 20% tax credit. You've essentially got yourself a 100% debt financed film. Well, you then take these promises to pay, otherwise in the movie business known as bankable paper, you take it to the bank, and the bank, after fees, prepayment of interest, so on and so forth, gives you 90 cents on the dollar of your bankable paper. Now you go to an equity investor and you say, I've already pre-sold my domestic, I've already pre-sold my foreign, I've got my tax credits, I've got my stars attached. Can you please be the last 10% of my film, because I got 100% debt financed film, but I'm only getting 90 cents on the dollar. And to an equity investor, that seems like the industry is bought in. There's domestic distribution, there's foreign distribution, tax credits, stars attached, and so on and so forth. What the investor does not sufficiently understand is that the domestic distributor and the foreign distributors, they're giving you what's known as a minimum guarantee, but in the contract it says, we will buy this is the minimum amount of money that we will pay once you deliver us the film. It is then our responsibility to add further money to the film for prints and advertising and promoting the film so that people go to movie theaters. And the distributor, when they're receiving the money, gets paid back first. So if they put up 40% of the budget, let's say $4 million, the first $4 million that comes back from the revenues of that film via their distribution goes to them. Then they also charge a 20% distribution fee. So to achieve a repayment of $4 million of debt, the film has to achieve $4.8 million in revenues, because 20% of 4 million is $800,000. So that gets tacked on to the $4 million. Now you're at $4.8 million. And generally speaking, whatever a film costs to produce is what is spent in marketing and advertising the film. That's a rule of thumb. Very often, prints and advertising, they commingle those expenses of the prints and advertising. So very often, a distributor will distribute, let's say, 10 films and spend a total of $50 million on those 10 films, but charge each of those films $10 million, because at any given time, they can account for $10 million of advertising. So that's one of the ways in which a distributor, in a minimum guarantee, in a debt financing model, when it's layered like that, a distributor can siphon off not just an extra 20% on the 4 million, but once the 4 million is paid off plus the $800,000, they can then tack on, say, another $10 million of print and advertising, but in reality only pay $5 million. So that's another $5 million of profit for themselves. And then because technically they spent $10 million, they can add on an extra 20% to the $10 million for their distribution fee. So the film won't essentially recoup, will not get a profit sharing agreement, will not receive any profit sharing from the distribution company until the film has achieved 4.8 million plus 12 million. You're now at $16.8 million.